Good morning, all. As we enter into this service, please note that those of you participating via Zoom have been muted by our host. And we ask that house participants please remain masked while in the sanctuary. Also be advised that this service is being recorded and, with the exception of joys and concerns, will be published online. Finally, if you wish to take a moment to arrange your own chalice at home. Welcome to this morning, this day, this opportunity to be together in community, which is a time of joy, comfort, and sometimes challenging. This Unitarian Universalist congregation is a place where we come to learn more about being human. We're not here because we've figured out life's questions or because we think we've got it right. We come here to learn about being in relationship together, how to listen, how to forgive, how to be vulnerable, and how to create trust and compassion in one another. Erica A. Hewitt. Mike will light our chalice here in the sanctuary. I invite you to light your own chalice and place it where it can be seen by all of us. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lit the flame within us and the community. Before we sing the first hymn, let me remind our remote participants to leave yourself muted and our in-house participants to remain masked. However, we want you and whoever is with you to sing with Mary and Jan as big and loud as you can. Make it a joyous experience. Please stand if you're able and sing the opening hymn, Gather the Spirit, number 347.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist community of Cambria. We are glad that you have joined us today. Our UUCC sanctuary sits on land which the Salinan and Chumash indigenous peoples historically inhabited. We honor their contribution to this region and give thanks for the opportunity to gather as a faith community on their unceded ancestral lands. As a Unitarian Universalist community, we celebrate religious diversity and welcome all who join us in journey of faith and spirituality. The UUCC is a lay-led congregation run by the democratic process. We invite speakers from different religion traditions and spiritual or scientific backgrounds to speak at our pulpit. We encourage presentations covering a variety of topics and areas of interest to our community that connect us with the 7 UU principles. Today's service centers around the 4th principle. We affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. As responsible religious seekers, we recognize that we are privileged to be free, to have resources to pursue life beyond mere survival, to continually search for truth and meaning, and to exist beyond bonds of dogma and oppression, and to wrestle freely with truth and meaning as they evolve. My name is Sue Davis, and I am your worship associate for this morning's service. I would like to extend a special welcome to today's guests and visitors. We are glad that you joined us this morning. If you're not on our mailing list, please visit the UUCC website at www.uuccambria.org so that we might keep you informed about all our activities. And please check out What's Happening, a weekly e-blast sent to all members and friends. This is a great way to keep up with the latest news in this community. And a reminder, if you wish to see this or any of the past Zoom services again, recordings of these services can be found on the UUCC website and Facebook as well. The membership committee invites non-members to consider joining our community. Please contact Diane DeMarco or a person on the board if you are interested. Thank you. So again, good morning and welcome to everyone. The affirmation is both a recognition of the nature of this community as well as a promise we make to aspire to. Let us now recite the UU affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another. We set aside this time for any short announcements that would be of interest to our UU community, members, and friends. Please keep your items short and to the point. For any items that need more explanation, please call or email the person after the service to be respectful of everyone's time. If you have an announcement, please raise your hand. When Diane or I call your name, please stand or unmute yourself, then speak. Janet in the sanctuary.
Just a reminder, today is Fourth Sunday. We're taking our first collection for Green Space. They're the local nonprofit that supports our local ecosystem as well as the marine environment. So please remember, today's Fourth Sunday. Thank you.
Any over in Zoomland, Diane?
No, it doesn't look like we have any announcements in Zoomland, Sue.
Okay.
I have an announcement.
Randy has one
Yes.
in the sanctuary.
Yes. For those of you on the worship committee, we are meeting tomorrow at a new time, 4 o'clock on Zoom. Tomorrow afternoon at 4. Please be there. I'll be sending out a Zoom link. That's it.
Next week, our own Susan Landau, who now lives in Port Townsend, Washington, will present Passionately Pro-Choice. Sharing together some of our personal and significant joys and concerns brings us closer as a faith community. We invite you to share the milestones that are deeply felt as a part of your personal life, along with expressions of gratitude or acknowledgement. But please be mindful and considerate of all who come to worship us this morning. This is a time of community building. The collective flames of these candles embody all the joys and sorrows which may have gone unspoken today, but are deeply felt in our community. The first reading is an excerpt from The History of the Chumash Tommel, an ocean plank canoe, written by Alan Salazar. I am Alan Salazar, a Fernandino, Tatavian, and Venturino Chumash elder. My tribal family was forced to live and work at the San Fernando Mission starting in 1799. The San Fernando Mission enslaved Tatavanian, Chumash, and Tongva tribal people for about 40 years. During that time, peoples of those three tribes intermarried. They shared their tribal ways and beliefs as much as they had done for years. These three tribes have been neighbors for thousands of years, hunting and gathering together and trading goods. They would come together for large gatherings to trade, share songs, stories, and exchange knowledge. My Chumash ancestors are a maritime culture. They built a very unique style of ocean tomel, or canoe. Tomel is the Chumash word for canoe. The Chumash have built tomels for thousands of years. They built tule reed canoes, small dugout canoes, and for the last 3,000 years, probably longer, they built plank tomels. Canoes made of boards glued together and tied together with strong twine. The Chumash territory starts in the Central Coast area around Morro Bay and goes south to Malibu. Over 770 miles of prime ocean coastline, plus the Channel Islands, Anacapa, Santa Cruz, Santa Rosa, and San Miguel Islands. We are and have been a maritime culture for over 13,000 years. We are and have been master canoe builders for over 13,000 years. We have fished in the Pacific Ocean in our canoes for over 13,000 years. But it is the plank canoe, the ocean plank tomels, that we are famous for. Let us enter a place of peace and serenity where you are one with your spiritual being. Be at peace within your space, where the absence of all that is temporal is its most cherished gift. Let us enter the stillness. When love and compassion are present in us and we send them outward, then that is truly prayer. Further, in sending love outward, we may notice a change in our own hearts. The second reading is an excerpt from the same source by Alan Salazar. The modern history, the history for the last 300 years, is well documented. In the early 1700s, the early explorers from Spain, England, and Russia would be greeted by 30 to 40 Tamils from almost every Chumash village along the coast. Tamils that were 20, 30, 40 feet in length. Many of the Tamils would be full of fish, 300 to 500 pounds of fish in each canoe. By the late 1700s, the number of Tamils had begun to decrease. Fur trappers who were hunting sea lions and sea otters began killing Chumash fishermen in their Tamils. The Chumash also hunted sea lions and sea otters for their valuable pelts. So we were considered competition. The men that built the Tamils, the men that fished in the Tamils, were dying and being killed. The Chumash men and women were being forced to live at the mission starting in 1769. We were being enslaved. We were the forced labor at the missions. The young Chumash men were learning how to grow crops, how to build adobe buildings, and how to live a laborer's lifestyle. The young men and women were not learning how to build their traditional Tamils. They were forced to become farm laborers, blacksmiths, and ranch hands, cooks, and maids. For the next 50 years, the Chumash people were in survival mode. We struggled to survive World War I, the Great Depression, World War II, and the civil rights movements. Then, in 1976, the Helic Tamil was built. It is a 26-foot-long canoe built for the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History. Helic is the Chumash word for peregrine falcon. It was taken out to San Miguel Island on a large support boat. Chumash men paddled the Helic from San Miguel Island to Santa Rosa Island, then to Santa Cruz Island. It is currently on display at the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History. Please stand if you're able and sing The Worldless Mountains Bravely Still, number 81.
Gentle quilt of fields and
Thank you, Mary and Jan. Today's sermon is titled The Revitalization of the Chumash Maritime Culture, to be delivered by Elder Alan Salazar. Alan Salazar has worked in different areas, including as a traditional storyteller, an Indigenous educator, an Indigenous monitor consultant, a spiritual advisor, a traditional paddler and builder of the Chumash canoes, a preschool teacher, and a juvenile institution officer. He's a published author of Tata, the Tataviam Tawi, a tribal story, and a Tataviam creation story. He's a founding member of the Kern County Native American Heritage Preservation Council and the Chumash Maritime Association, and a member of the California Indian Advisory Council for the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History, and has served as a community advisor with the Ventura County Indian Education Consortium for over 24 years. As a member of the Chumash Maritime Association, he helped build the first working traditional Chumash plank canoe in modern times and has paddled this canoe for over 24 years. He's a member of the Elders Council for the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians and has been involved with storytelling and professional education programs at schools, museums, and cultural events. Mike and I have been enjoying conversations with Alan for over 25 years at various Native gatherings. Alan was going to join us live today here in our sanctuary, but unfortunately that bug has got him also, so he's coming from his home in Ventura. Please welcome Alan Salazar.
Amanat Netawan Alan Salazar, Netawan Huchukyayak, Netawan Chumash, Netawan Tataviam, Pesekva Nukasin, Goyanga Tapo Nukasin. Hello, I'm Alan Salazar, fast runner. I am Chumash and Tataviam on my father's side. And I come from the village of Pesekva, which is San Fernando, California. It's where I was born and where my tribal ancestors come from. We trace back to the Tataviam village of Chigoyanga, which is where Magic Mountain is currently built, so in Santa Clarita, which is Tataviam territory, and the Chumash village of Tapu, which is Tapu Canyon in Simi Valley. Today, I want to talk about our Chumash tomols, our plank canoes, and my involvement since 1997. In 1997, a small group of Chumash people came together and formed the Chumash Maritime Association. And the sole purpose of that organization was to build tomols like you see on your screen. That one is Eliwayun, which is a 24-foot plank canoe, a flat bottom canoe. They carry a lot of weight. If you look at the kind of the top of the picture, there's actually two dolphins swimming towards us. So this photo was taken, I believe, in 2007 or 2008. And as we were making a crew change, paddling out to Santa Cruz Island from Channel Islands Harbor in Oxnard, a pod of dolphins came around us, and those two dolphins were entertaining us, swimming together. And shortly after the picture was taken, they went underwater and went right under our tomol. It's one of the many incredible experiences I've had. As was said earlier, the Chumash, we've been building these plank canoes for thousands and thousands of years. They're very unique. There's only two tribes on the whole West Coast. So you can go from Alaska to the tip of South America, and the only two tribes that built plank canoes were the Chumash and the Tongva. And the Tongva are the Chumash to the south of us, to the south of the Chumash from Los Angeles. We built plank canoes because we didn't have the large redwood logs to make dugout canoes. And we came up with a technology of when we found large logs, redwood that would drift down from Northern California, or pine or cottonwood trees locally, we would drive whale bone rib wedges into those logs, 3 or 4 wedges, a couple feet apart, and part of the log would come off 1 to 2 inches thick, and we would sand them and shape them and basically make our own 2x6 and 2x8s. Then we glue and tie them together. We glue them with a combination of the natural tar, the asphaltum that seeps up along our coast and even inland. So Carpinteria was a major canoe building village because there's a lot of natural tar there at that beach. We mix that tar with pine pitch, and then we glue and tie our boards together. Dogbane, milkweed were 2 plants that we make our twine from. Dogbane was the most common because it makes a very strong twine. So the women, the children, the men, everybody would be making twine. It takes well over a mile of twine to tie a 24-foot canoe together. But like I said, they're very unique. Most of the tribes along our coast here in North and South America made dugout canoes. And like I said, we were the only one of 2 tribes that made these plank canoes. Scientists, anthropologists, archaeologists, they believe we've been making the canoes for around 3,500 years, maybe possibly 4,000 years. And they base that on a couple simple facts. The main one being that around 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, larger fish bones started turning up in our middens. So a midden is basically a trash heap. So after we eat the fish and throw the fish bones over in a pile, you can go through those pile of bones and shells and determine age and what we were eating 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. So apparently 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, swordfish, sharks, and dolphin bones started showing up. Prior to that, there's not any evidence of us eating swordfish, shark, and dolphins. My theory is we've been building canoes like this for probably more like 7,000 to 8,000 years. 7,000 to 8,000 years ago, when they had a major warming and a lot of the ice caps and icebergs started to melt. Our coastline was approximately 3 to 5 miles further out, and Anacapa, Santa Cruz, Santa Rosa, San Miguel was all one large island. It was called Santa Rosa. So 8,000 years ago, our coastline was here in Southern California, approximately 4 to 5 miles farther out. The large island was only 5 to 6 miles off our coast. It was easily to get to in a raft or a small tule rigged canoe, which is about the size of a modern day kayak. When the ocean waters raised and that became those 4 islands on our coastline moved back, now all of a sudden our islands where Chumash people lived were 10, 15, 20, 25 miles away. That's when I believe we started coming up with a technology to build the plank canoes. We just continued for about 3,000 to 4,000 years hunting the smaller fish because they were just so abundant. There was really no need to wrestle with a swordfish or a shark or a dolphin when you had an abundance of smaller fish. But regardless, we've been building them for a long time. And as was said, during the mission period, when the young Chumash people were enslaved at the missions, we stopped building them. And in 1997, I was part of that small group that built Eliwayun, which is swordfish. the first working tamal in modern times. Um, for 3.5 years, we practiced relearning those skills. Our paddles, as you can see, are double bladed. Those are wood paddles. So compared to a kayak paddle or even a wood paddle that outriggers use, it's a lot heavier, over 11 feet long. We actually are kneeling in our canoes. So our canoes are so deep, and flat bottom canoes are very tippy. They rock back and forth. So in order to stabilize them, you line the bottom of your canoe with some weight. My ancestors would put large rocks between the paddlers. And as they caught fish, they would throw out 20, 30 pounds of rocks as they caught 20, 30 pounds of fish. So we lined the bottom of our tamols with sandbags. In the 24-foot tamol Ilawiyun, we put about 350 pounds of ballast sandbags. This tamol that you're looking at right now is a 32-foot long tamol from Santa Ynez. Its name is Muptamai, which is ancient memories. We lined that with 3 rows of sandbags, each sandbag weighing approximately 30 to 35 pounds. So there's over 600 to 700 pounds of ballast in that tamol. They're very heavy. They're built to carry great amounts of weight, but that makes them very slow. It's an extremely physically demanding activity. I don't call it a sport, although I kind of attack it like it's a sport when I paddle. After practicing 3.5 years, we had researched and realized that a traditional Chumash canoe had not made the crossing from the mainland to any of the islands in over 150 years. During that mission period, that's when we stopped building them, somewhere in the 1830s to 1840s. So we practiced long paddles from Santa Barbara to Carpinteria. We would have support boats following us. We would make crew changes to get fresh paddlers in. We knew it was going to be a long journey. We were figuring around 8 to 10 hours. It actually took us almost 12 hours the first crossing. And on September 8th, 2001, we felt we were ready. We wanted to leave when it was dark. So this picture here was taken at 3 a.m. In 2017. In 2001, we left at 3:45 in the morning. That's me with the red ball cap on, but in 2001, I was the paddler in the front, the #1 paddler, and we left the harbor at 3:45, Channel Islands Harbor, which is Oxnard, California. We sent our support boat with our extra paddlers and our Zodiac about 2 miles ahead of us and asked them just to leave one small light on so we could follow them, and that's how we navigate it because it was overcast that day. We couldn't see any stars or anything to navigate with. So we paddled over to Anacapa, then paddled from Anacapa over to Santa Cruz, and it took us almost 12 hours. One lesson, we learned many lessons that day. The first lesson was we forgot to practice when it was dark. We never had any practices at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. or even 5 a.m. in the morning to be prepared how dark it is on the ocean. It is extremely dark, pitch black dark. And the first paddlers are our strongest paddlers, our most experienced paddlers, because they paddle from that 3:45, that 3 a.m. till around 6:30, when there's enough daylight that we can safely make a crew change, and we take that whole crew out. So this tamol has 6 paddlers. When we leave on September 10th, in about 2.5 months, when we leave on September 10th at 3 a.m., the first crew will paddle easily 3 to 3.5 hours. And then we'll take that whole crew out and put in 6 fresh paddlers, and they'll continue on. Another lesson we learned that first year was the currents between Anacapa and Santa Cruz are very brutal. There was actually a time, and I was in the tamol, that we were paddling pretty hard and not moving. We were going against the currents, and basically we were just treading water. So the first paddler sets the pace, and I let my other fellow paddlers know that we're going to have to pick up the pace. But basically what we're going to do is sprint for as long as we can. I picked up the pace. The deeper you put your blade in the water, the more water you pull, but the more difficult it is. And we paddled as hard as we could for a little bit over 10 minutes, and we were able to get out of those cross currents. After, because we'd already been paddling for several hours, we sprinted basically for 10, 12 minutes, got out of those difficult currents, and then we were exhausted and we made a crew change. So we've learned many lessons. The paddler in the back is actually the only one sitting. He or she is the captain or navigator. If you notice in the picture up on the screen, his blade is much bigger because he uses his paddle when he's not paddling as a rudder to make sure that we're going straight, that we're taking the swells on with the front of the tamal, taking the swell directly on, not sideways. 2012, we got sideways. We were in rough seas. The swells were over 4 feet high, only 10 seconds apart, and we actually swamped it where it filled up with water. It filled up with water with over 600 pounds of wet sand in the bottom of it and 6 paddlers, and it didn't sink. If it would have been 500 years ago, 3,000 years ago, those 6 men probably would have been lost at sea. We were 8 miles out. So it's extremely dangerous and an extremely physically demanding activity. But I love being in the tamal. It's something that has come naturally to me. When we left at 3:45 on 2001 for that first crossing, we realized that we hadn't practiced in the dark and it was a new experience for us. We came up with the term dark water paddler. So when my talk is through, if you want to see an incredible video, go to NOAA and NOAA, and they have a video that is about our, I believe, the 2018 crossing, the last time we went before the pandemic. And it's called Dark Waters, Dark Water Journey. So if you go to YouTube and put in NOAA and dark water, it should come up. It's a wonderful experience, and it talks a lot about how spiritual it is to paddle when it's dark. But even in the daytime, when we're out there in open water in a 24 or 32 foot canoe, as I've said several times, it's extremely physically demanding. But it's also for especially our Chumash people, it's a spiritual experience, reconnecting with the ocean, reconnecting with our canoes, reconnecting with our ancestors. It is extremely important to us. It's probably one of the most important parts of our culture, and was probably one of the biggest inventions we came up with, was the plank canoe. The men that build the canoes, paddle in them, were called the Brotherhood of the Tamal. And the Brotherhood of the Tamal was a very highly respected part of the Chumash culture. If you were a member of the Brotherhood of Tamal and you were in your tamal paddling up and down the coast, and you were from the village of Shishalope, which is Ventura, and we paddled up to Suptun, which is the village there in Santa Barbara, right by the harbor where we have our practices. You would be welcomed because those men were highly respected. In 1997, when we formed the Chumash Maritime Association, many of our first meetings were about, and our discussions revolved around one issue. Should we have women helping us build our tamals, and should we have women paddle in our tamals? I'm a storyteller, and I've researched traditional Chumash myth and legend. I've written 2 books. I'm going to talk about them in just a moment. But the book I'm working on right now, my 3rd book, is a traditional Chumash myth and legend, Coyote Rescues Hawk. The reason I chose that for our third book is it has a tamol in it. It's a central part of the story. But there's another story that I was considering, and it was a story that I based my decision on in 1997. And it's a traditional myth and legend told by Fernando Labrado, a very respected Chumash elder who built a tamal in 1912, who made meticulous notes and drawings of how his father, his grandfather, his uncles, his great uncles built tamals. And Fernando told this story that the chief's daughter, and the Chumash word is wote, the wote's daughter was out fishing one day in her tamal. That one sentence, the wote's daughter was out fishing one day in her tamal. So even though it's the brotherhood of the tamal, if there's a myth and legend talking about our women out fishing in their tamals, the likelihood that our women helped build the canoes, our women had their own canoes, our women would go out fishing, is extremely likely. So we have always, since 1997, had women paddlers. We don't have as many women paddlers as we do men paddlers, but we have women involved. And we have a young woman right now, the focus of the 2018 video with Noah, Dark Water, is Eva Pagaline. And her father is the captain of this tamal you're looking at, Moctezuma, from Santa Ynez. And Eva was, I believe, around 11 or 12 when she started coming to the practices, to the crossings. And now she's one of our young, strong paddlers. And let me be clear on this. She's not one of our young, strong women paddlers. She's one of our young, strong paddlers. She has my attitude. She will not give up. She works out religiously. She's a beast in the gym. She's a beast in the tamal. She pulls as much water as anybody. I'm proud to have helped her a little bit and to have mentored her. And I believe she will be our first woman captain. She is our future, along with many of our other young paddlers. And in the next 3 to 5 years, her generation will be taking over the canoe journeys, the tamal culture. I'm 71 years old. I'm still paddling. I'm going to paddle on September 10th. I recently, last Sunday, got my grandson in the tamal to paddle for the first time. He's only 13, so he's 3 or 4 years away from being a serious paddler, if that's what he chooses. But that's why I do this, for our young paddlers. I mentioned that I'm a storyteller, and I used the story about the wote's daughter fishing in her tamal, which is actually a mermaid story. She, at the end of the story, turns into a mermaid, and it's a kind of a sad but beautiful story. But I haven't talked at all about my Tataviam village. As I introduce myself, Hamanat, hello, Netawan, I am Alan Salazar, Pasekfa Nukasin. I'm from the village of Pasekfa, San Fernando, California. Those words are in the Tataviam language. Tataviam, the word Tataviam actually means people facing the sun, or people facing the south, which was given as to us by our neighboring tribe from the south, in the mountains around Gorman, Fort Tejon, Lebec, going into the southern San Joaquin Valley, where the Kitanumuk tribe, and they were our neighbors, and they when they would come to our village to trade, most of our villages were on our south-facing slopes, where the sun keeps you warm. So they came up with the word Tataviam, which is actually a Kirinumak word that means people facing the sun. But the Tataviam were a very small tribe. Our villages were very small, 40, 50, 60 people at best. We barely survived the mission period. We barely survived the bounty system in early California history. Our language is pretty well lost. Our stories are lost. There's only 2, 3 stories that I'm aware of out there, Tataviam stories, where there are dozens and dozens of Chumash stories. When I was deciding between the Woke daughter and her Tamol and Coyote rescues Halek, which is hawk or falcon, I actually had 30 stories to choose from if I wanted to. But Tataviam, there are none. So during the pandemic, I started writing my original stories, Tata the Tataviam Towhee, which is a story of a towhee bird, a teenage towhee bird. It's written in the spirit of my Tataviam ancestors. My second book that I wrote is a Tataviam creation story. And it's my own original story, but once again, it's written in the spirit of my Tataviam ancestors. And simply put, the story says that this council of animals right here, this group of animals, the Tataviam Council of Animals, met to create the Tataviam people before there were any Tataviam people. If you notice the illustrations, which I believe are very unique and help sell our books, the illustrations were done by a wonderful artist named Mona Lewis, this beautiful woman right here. And she makes all of her paints herself from little small, if you can see this rock, this is a yellow, kind of orangish brown, soft stone that once you pound this up and add some tree sap, some honey and some water, you can make your own paint. It's the way our rock art paint was made by the Chumash. It's the way Tataviam people made their paint. It's the way tribal people have made their paint for thousands of years all around the world. And that's how Mona makes her paints. I go out and collect little ochres like these. She pounds them up and she makes her own paints the way tribal people have made paints all the time. If I'm hoping that someone can put that website right there where we have questions, www.sunspritehandwork.com. And if you're interested in ordering our books, you can go to that website right there. Thank you very much. I'll close with a request. The Chumash are a large tribe. We are actually 6 separate smaller tribes that were lumped together as Chumash. The word Chumash means shell bead money makers. We traded that shell beads for many things, and those shell beads have been found hundreds and hundreds of miles away in villages of different tribes throughout all of California, into Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico. But the only federally recognized Chumash tribe are the Santa Ynez Chumash. They are approximately 300 tribal members. There are approximately maybe 600-700 Santa Ynez Samala Chumash people. That is less than 10% of all Chumash people. There are 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 people that have Chumash ancestry, the Northern Chumash, the Barbareño Chumash, the Ventureño Chumash, the Island Chumash, the Mountain Chumash, They are all federally non-recognized. My Tataviam tribe, the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, is a fairly non-recognized tribe, which means we have no land. We don't have a reservation. Our land was taken from us. That's why at the beginning of the service, it was said that you're on the unceded land of the Selenian and Chumash people. We did not sell our land. We did not sign a treaty with the US government. Our land was taken from us. There is a process to get federal recognition. And if someone could type in Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians into the question, into that little page right there, you can help us by simply going to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, BIA.gov. And when you go to BIA.gov, they have their little bar right there, and you type in OFA. And what will come up will be the Office of Federal Acknowledgement. That is a whole department that what they do is review petitions of tribes that are trying to get federally recognized. My Fernandino Tataviam tribe is currently under review. We're about halfway through. In about 2 months, if you go to OFA, it has opportunities for comments. If you click on, and I know this is a lot, but stay with me, please. BIA.gov, then go to OFA. And when you click on Office of Federal Acknowledgement, there'll be a list of sites and things that you can read about and go to. And one says opportunities for comments. In about 2 months, when you click on opportunity for comments, our tribe will come up. Our petition number is 158, and you will have the opportunity. There's a mailing address if you want to send a written letter, which I think is even better. So you can go to that site this afternoon and go to OFA, and they'll have a contact us, and it'll have a mailing address. And if you put in there, I'm in support of petition 158, the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians getting their federal recognition. The more letters they get from people like you, the better chance we have of getting our federal recognition. I want to thank you for letting me share some of my tribal history, my ancestry. The next time I'm going to talk about my English ancestry on my mom's side. That's why I'm having my cup of Earl Grey tea right now as I talk to you. Thank you for letting me do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. I can relate to the tea. And thank you for making your Chumash history come alive for us. Thank you very much for that. The morning offering will now be given and received. Please remember we are a self-sustaining congregation and provide all financial resources for our many ministries. We recognize the spiritual value of generosity and invite you to participate. If you are viewing this service remotely, please use one of the methods shown on your screen. Thank you. Thank you, Jan. Our thanks for all gifts given and received for the work of this community. Let us now sing the doxology.
From all that dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land by every tongue.
Please stand if you are able and sing the closing hymn, We Are All Apart by Jill Knight.
We are all a part of this beautiful web of existence, with the goal of peace, justice, and liberty. We affirm the worth and dignity of every person with compassion and equality. We encourage and accept one another in our spiritual growth here on earth, with freedom in our search for truth and meaning. We are all a part, we are all a part of this beautiful web of existence.
Let us now recite the valediction. We extinguish the flame of this chalice, and we know that the light of truth and love and warmth of this community go with us until we meet again. Please extinguish your chalice at home now. After the benediction, we encourage you to stay for questions and comments. Diane or I will call on you when you raise your hand. Alan?
I want to pray today to the Great Spirit, to Mother Earth, to the Sky People, to the Four Directions, and to all of our ancestors. We ask them to guide us, to give us strength, patience, love, and understanding. We pray for our elders. We pray for our young. We pray for our soldiers and warriors. We pray for all our leaders. We pray for all those that are sick. And we pray for those that have gone on to the spirit world. Isa Shwala, we will all love. Kisa Kantush, we will all believe. Ki Ushka all, we will all be strong. Ki Antikish, Ki Antikish, Ki Antikish. We are all alive. We are all alive. We are all alive. Blessings to everyone.